Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike. I'm a paramedic and EMS instructor, and I wanted to make this video mostly for my students, but really for all healthcare providers who are either in school or preparing for recertification that stress over drug calculations, specifically the dopamine calculation, which seems to be the one that most people fear. I wanted to show my technique for doing the calculation that is not the dopamine clock, which will give you a ballpark figure, but it won't give you an exact drip rate, which most tests are looking for. The technique that I use actually gives you an exact drip rate. So I wanted to go over, initially start off going over the original formula to show how my technique was developed, and I don't want to make it sound like I developed this technique. This was taught to me many years ago, and most people that I show this to ask why wasn't this taught in my school. So I thought that I would put together this little video and show it and try to get it out there to more people. You will find this quite a few places on the internet. Most people will write it on a paper and produce it that way, but unless it's shown to you, it's really kind of a hard concept to get. But once it is shown to you, it makes perfect sense and it makes the calculation much easier. So let's go ahead and get started with the original formula here. So this is usually what we were taught in school for calculating drips that are based that were medication drips. So we start off with the ordered dose. So for dopamine, this ordered dose could be anywhere from 2 to 20 micrograms per kilogram. So we need to know the patient's weight in kilograms because this is a weight-based medication, times the drip set that we're using, so a 10 drop, a 15 drop, or a 60 drop set, all over the concentration of the medication that we're using. And in the case of dopamine, whether we mix our dopamine by putting 800 milligrams in 500 milliliters of normal saline, or by putting 400 milligrams in 250 milliliters of normal saline, we get the same concentration, and that concentration is going to be 1600 micrograms per milliliter. So this is the old calculation. So let's kind of do an example here, the old way. A doctor orders the patient to receive 10 micrograms per kilogram per minute of a dopamine infusion. The patient weighs 90 kilograms, and as mentioned before, the dopamine that we're mixing is 800 milligrams in 500 milliliters. Now be aware that you may be using pre-mixed dopamine, and if you look on the bag, you'll see that even if it is pre-mixed, the concentration is still the same. It's a 1600 microgram per milliliter in the bag. So let's set up this calculation. Again, we're still doing this the old way. So let's set this calculation up. So we said that our ordered dose was 10 micrograms times the patient's weight, which is 90 kilograms, times our drip set, which, remember, when we do a medicated drip, our drip set is going to be 60 drops per minute, all over the concentration of the medication, which we mentioned already was 1600 micrograms per milliliter. So once we do this math, and I'm just for purposes of keep this easy and not bringing up the calculator stuff, but once we do this math, what we end up coming up with is 54,000 over 1600. Now already, once we start getting numbers this big, we start stressing out, and if you're anything like me, I by all means am no math genius, so I see big numbers like this and I automatically lock up. But we could take this on, let's say you're allowed to use your calculator in class or what have you, so you continue to do the math, and we have 54,000 divided by 1600. Once we do this math, we come up with 33.75, which converts over to 34 drops per minute. And we've completed our dopamine calculation. But kind of, look at all the steps that we had to go through here to do that calculation and the big numbers. So let me show you the faster way of doing this calculation. So really quick here, I'm going to clear my screen. And let's get back in and we show you the faster way. So we'll continue with the dose times the drip set. This is kind of a fast review of what we just did over the concentration. Now what I want you to see here is that in a dopamine calculation, the drip set and the concentration, these two variables really aren't variable. They're constant. They never change. No matter the dose that's being ordered, those two never change. So if you understand that actually what we're looking at is the dose times 60 over 1600. This number will always be 60. This number will always be 1600. And you can also see that in the dose, really the dose is made up of two things. It's the order from the doctor times the patient's weight in kilograms, which many of us can do that in our head. If the doctor orders a 10 micrograms per kilogram and the patient weighs 90 kilograms, then the dose that the patient's going to receive is 900. That part's not too difficult to figure out. So to keep this simplified, I just write dose, knowing that it's a weight-based medicine. So I'm going to have to do the calculation really fast in my head to put down the dose. But back here to the simplification. If 60 never changes and 1600 never changes, we should be able to eliminate of these two by reducing them down and coming up with a number that we could use all the time. So in doing that, we can say that 60 goes into 60 one time. 60 goes into 1600 26.6 times. What we're left with now for our calculation is simply the dose that we've come up with from the doctor all over 26.6. This now becomes our new formula for figuring out a dopamine calculation. Much easier to look at and much easier to deal with than the original formula of the ordered dose times the kilograms times the drip set all over the concentration. So let's take that exact same example that we used before. And the doctor orders 10 micrograms per kilogram per minute. The patient weighs 90 kilograms, and our dopamine is mixed 1600 micrograms. Oops, that's not micrograms, that's milligrams. 1600 micrograms per milliliter. So remember, the new way we're going to do this is simply dose divided by 26.6. So we would say 90 times 10 is 900 all over 26.6. And I'm going to bring up a calculator here so you can see I'm not making these numbers up. 900 divided by 26.6 equals 33.8, which translates over to 34 drops per minute. Now again, we'll go back and I'll show you the old way on the calculator so you can see that we come up with the exact same numbers. We'll clear that off. The old way we did 10 micrograms per kilogram times the patient's weight, which was 90 kilograms, times the drip set, which was 60 drops per minute, all divided by the concentration, which was 1600 micrograms, And there we are at 34 drops a minute, just like we came up with on our much simpler conversion. So let's do this again with another dosage. Let's try this with 5 micrograms per kilogram per minute. And our patient weighs 75 kilograms. So we'll do this, we'll set this up both ways, the old way and the new way. So the old way would have been 5 times 75 times 60 all over 1600. Bring the calculator back up again and we'll do that math. 5 times 75 times 60 divided by 1600. We come up with 14 drops per minute. Okay, that's the old way. Now, let's try this our new way. Remember, our new way was dose over 26.6. So, our dose is going to be 75 times 5. So the patient is going to receive 375 micrograms. So dose is 375 over 26.6 divided by 26.6 equals, and we have the exact same number, 14 drops per minute. So I hope this helps. 26.6 is for dopamine only. Okay, it's for dopamine only, so this doesn't work for all drips, but I challenge you to look at your other drips and find where you can reduce them down to get a magic number like this, and it will work for the other drips also. So if you like this and this helped, please like it and share this. If you have any comments, please comment below. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please make a note down there and let me know, and I will try to produce more videos like this. I hope this helped, and good luck.